Hey, welcome to the Growth Whisperers Podcast. I'm Kevin Lawrence, and I'm here with my co-host, Brad Giles. And this is where we talk about everything related to helping leaders build enduring great companies. And so today, Brad's with me as he always is every week. Brad, how you doing today?
I am doing pretty good today. I will tell you that. Pretty good. Had a few days off. Got to go down south of Western Australia. Just some really good, well-earned rest with the family, connecting with the kids. Just a great time. And I'm excited for what we're talking about today. I'll tell you that. But before we get to that, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a long day. These are long days doing the podcast at the end, but I also had some time off. My son and I and a few friends were up at the racetrack racing cars and go-karts. Had a little unfortunate incident where I had a wonderful learning experience, Brad, where I was trying just a little bit too hard as I was braking in my new kart. And these things are insanely fast. And I ran right off the end of the racetrack through a barricade. I was wearing the barricade at the end. So I was grateful to have a helmet and grateful that they have lots of spare parts to fix my kart. So it was good laughs, good fun, and no major injuries. So yeah, it was nice to get away and do something different.
Sounds like that breaking in process can be a little bit expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you start breaking in the driver versus the cart. It was good. But it's a reminder is that, quality time with friends, or in your case, family, and how important it is. And with, the COVID things that people are going through currently in the world, sometimes it's a little harder to do. But when you do, you kind of treasure that time. Really treasure that time more than ever. Good kind of regrounding. So, what is it that you're so excited about today that we're covering off on the show?
Episode 31 today. We've been doing this for 30 episodes. This is our 31st. And every time we introduce the podcast, we say we're going to talk about how to help leaders to build enduring great companies. And we want to really circle back and say, what is an enduring great company? And how do we define it, an enduring great company? And what are the kind of the components within that? So a pretty interesting subject, I think. It's what we're passionate about. It's kind of the opposite, if you will, of like a growth hacking or someone who wants to do a startup to sell it in 6 months or a year's time. Like, we're very much about, let's build an enduring great company, something that's going to last for the long term. So perhaps let's begin by saying, what's our definition of an enduring great company? What is it that you and I are both so passionate about that we spend all of our energy and this podcast on?
Yeah, and we should talk about why after as well, Brad. I'm just thinking about that. So let's talk about what is it, and then let's talk about why we're so passionate about it. So the what, and we spent some time to kind of craft this beautiful statement that summarizes it. And so I'm going to read this so we get it right. So to us, an enduring great company it's a purpose-led company that grows and thrives via sustained competitive advantage over many decades. So purpose-led, i.e. they're in it for more than profit, which is one of the reasons that they can endure for so long. It continues to grow and thrive. It's just not sitting there. Sustained competitive advantage, meaning that they are being relevant and continuing to offer something special the customers will pay for that should generate excellent profits. Again, and over many decades. And everyone's measure is longer because that's the enduring piece.
Yeah, so I'll say it again just to reinforce it, because it is pretty foundational to the discussion today.
Yeah.
A purpose-led company that grows and thrives via a sustained competitive advantage over many decades. So that's our kind of definition of an enduring great company. Again, purpose, we're drawing on many kind of thought leaders in this area, like Jim Collins, like Peter Drucker, Pat
Drucker, yeah.
Lencioni, a lot of the people that we're heavily influenced by within that. But again, its center, at its center is a purpose. It's continuing to grow and thrive. And the sustained competitive advantage really speaks to the strategy component, but it must be able to be led by the purpose and enact the purpose over many decades, as well as sustain that competitive advantage. So the only way you can do that is by having the right team, by having a team of people that will grow and replenish over time. And obviously the strategy component, you've got to be able to be good at executing.
I bet there's probably 8 things you probably need to be good at to have an enduring great time. I'm just thinking, it's a wild guess, Brad. Let's see how it plays out. But I think I guess there's 8 things that you need to have.
Well, that's a very specific number. Let's maybe dig into what are the things that it takes to build an enduring great company.
Yes, but before we do, I want to go back to the why piece. Like, why? Because some people want to build a short-term company, they flip for a lot of cash. Why are we and this podcast about building enduring great companies? Like, why pick that type of company versus, some of the others?
For me, I think it's because that's what matters. I think it's about fulfillment of work for the people who have jobs in the company. I think it's about sustainability in terms of not only the environment, but also in terms of people's jobs, where they can have long-term rewarding jobs, and they can have a workplace that gives them great reward, and to be surrounded by people that are, that have similar values, where they're on a mission, I guess, to live the purpose. And all of those things aren't created overnight. Growth, growth hacking is a great marketing term, but you just can't do any of these things quickly. Everything of substance
What if
takes
somebody
time.
said you sound like you're old and set in your ways and traditional? And I mean, I hate to think of us as being old, but some people might say that. But what is it about this? Like, why do you care? Because you could make an argument for some of the other stuff. So why is it matters to you?
Why does it matter to me that I help people to build enduring great companies? Is that the question?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's an excellent question, and I'm stuck on it because that's thanks for that. Yeah.
I'm here to help, man.
Yeah, no, thank you. because that's where the great reward is. Because you when we're talking about companies that have a sustained competitive advantage, for example, you can't just do that in one day. You can't just say, oh, here's a great idea and it's done. Like, this stuff takes time. And this is and this is not just, to your point, because I might be old. This has been borne out through many centuries of human existence. You can go back to ancient philosophers and find the same principles. This is all about principles that can't be changed.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Like, I was listening to this podcast and talking. It was interestingly, believe it or not, it was an interview with Mike Tyson, which was a fascinating interview. But it was talking about they got into the history of building the Great Wall of China and how that was built over 2,000 years. That's an enduring great project. I challenge you to name a business person that thinks in terms of even 1,000 years.
Yeah.
I don't think there are many. But China had a plan that took 2,000 years. So that's enduring great thinking. So maybe I'll help. For me, Brad, um, I've learned. I've worked with tons of businesses over the years. Making money ain't that hard, right? You get the right, but doing something meaningful. Once you make money, then it's like, now what? But making an impact on the world that you care about, and creating an organization or an organism, um, that does something meaningful for the long term really resonates with me, because I was young. I thought get rich quick was kind of cool.
Mm.
And there's nothing wrong. I think money is awesome and you can do great things with it. But I just naturally resonate to enduring great companies because I also have a real strong loyalty gene, in that I want to, work with lots of clients for the long term. And I believe in the long term. And my brain, I enjoy it. I really, in building something that succeeds well beyond us. And maybe there's some ego in that. Maybe it's like the people who want to build cities, or build, design and build great towers. I mean, to be able to build something amazing and to be a part of it, and then to step back and watch it thrive without you, in many ways, it's like being a great parent.
Yeah.
You help to create children that go on to be amazing adults, who can pass down those things, hopefully, to the next generation. So all kinds, and I've worked with, and I still work with some businesses that choose, they want to do a shorter term strategy, but majority of my clients, it's enduring great. And I just like it. I like the long term thinking, and I like building. You know what it is? I did an assessment in the Strengths Finder, from Marcus Buckingham's book, Now Discover Your Strengths. Wonderful book, loved it. But I am something called a maximizer. And the maximizer strength is about taking something good and making it great. So I think it also ties in there. So we can rationalize it lots of different ways. I get a kick out of building great businesses that become, spectacularly successful. And I think it's a great thing where you get to see the founding shareholders go on and have other people run their businesses, and the business continues on in those next hands. It's just, yeah, I love it. Anything else you would add to that, Brad? Maybe a little esoteric, but it's just a great thing to be part of a business that makes tons of money, incredible profits, but is doing some great things for its customers, its community, and its employees. I love it.
Yeah, it's so rewarding, number one. And I think that after a while, if you do enough reading of modern and aged literature, you eventually come to the realization that nothing great is built immediately. Like all great
No.
dynasties take time to evolve. All great musicians take time. Fleetwood Mac, I think that their Rumors album was album number 21 or something like that. Like
What?
everything. Yeah. You think that was their first album, but they'd done a lot of work before that. So greatness, true, real, long-standing greatness, it's not created at a one-day seminar. It's not created by reading a book and having a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Everything takes time. And yeah, so that's all I would add. That's all I'd add.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we believe in it. We're not saying it's the only way to do it. It's just the types of companies we like to work with. And in my particular house, it's generally founder owned and often led, unless they've gone through a succession event. But the founding family is still involved in the business some way, even takes it up a notch. There's something magical about those companies as well, because they still really care about the people. Sometimes when the founding family is farther away, sometimes if they don't have a strong culture, they don't care as much. Some do, but there's something about that I just love. So let's get into it. So, sensing there's 8 things that we might think that are really, it takes to build it into, and we'll find out if I'm right real quick. But, one of the first things and where it all starts is this thing called a vision. And, we're not talking about a fluffy vision, but, like a real strong long-term vision. And what we found is that, And Jim Collins found in some of his research that many of them had what he would call a purpose and something called a BHAG. Most of them did. Most of his companies he studied in his work. But it's a vision of doing something great that not only inspires people, like this is awesome, we want to get on this train or get on this program here, but it also focuses people on what they're trying to do to kind of channel their efforts. And vision's often used in ways where it's kind of fluffy and stuff like that. We're talking a pretty clear visions of where we truly want to get. So I
Yeah.
don't know, Brad. Why? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's got to be a vision that is potentially greater than the leader. And that really speaks to Jim Collins' level 5 leadership, right? But it's not just
Yep.
about, here's what I want to do. I want to be rich. Okay, that's fine. But it's got to be a vision for the organization that is bigger than them, where they can kind of forego their own needs for that of the organization.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that is about where do we want to go? What is our North Star and what is our purpose? Like, why does this company exist? And we know the great work from Simon Sinek around that, which is very complementary to the stuff that Jim Collins has
Yep.
done there. But yeah, I think that that really, in terms of building an enduring great company, it's got to begin, like, where are we going? What is the long-term vision? And that can evolve over time. I'm talking multi-decades here,
Sure.
but like, that's step one. You've got to have a long-term vision.
Why? That seems logical. Well, of course you need a vision, blah, 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 but why? Like, what does it actually do that makes a difference versus being kind of cool and inspiring?
I think well, number one, it helps to ennoble people. It helps people within the organization to feel like they're part of something bigger than the quarterly results.
Yeah.
It makes them feel like, if they're on the front line, okay, I'm dealing with this customer, but that connects to how we're going to be better in a year or 3 years. It should be inspiring for the people around them, as much as it helps to prioritize where we want to be. That is
Yep.
inspirational.
Yeah, and I think it also helps you to attract some of the best people and to keep them engaged in it, because people want to feel like they're part of something important. People say that the paycheck's really important, but I think a lot of this other stuff is. So yeah, I agree. So I'd say the kind of 3 components we often talk about with it, as I mentioned, the purpose by Jim Collins, which Simon Sinek has expanded on, the BHAG from Jim Collins, which is a big, hairy, audacious goal of where you want to be in 10 to 25 or 30 years. And then the core values, which we'll talk about a little bit later. You could argue core value is a part of that vision. But we'll talk about that in another one of the ideas that might end up being 8 in total. So anything else you would say around the long-term vision piece?
No, other than it needs to be repeated regularly. It's the job of the CEO, and it needs to be like on repeat. Like imagine a record that's stuck on repeat, or a tape or a CD, or I don't know, a iTunes music player or whatever it is. It's something that's on repeat.
On loop.
It's on loop. Yep. Thank you. And it's repeated regularly. So let's go to number 2.
Yeah.
Of a list that allegedly could be 8. Number 2. So first of all, we had long-term vision, but next we've got to have a strong culture and behaviors. So this is really talking about the people in the organization. Let's go back to what Jim Collins said, right? Rule number 1, you've got to have the right people on the bus doing the right things the right way. So this means without the right people, if you accept mediocrity in terms of your people over the long time, you're just going to build a mediocre business. So you've got to have a strong culture where you've got core values that tells us who we are, what do we accept and what do we not accept, what happens when people breach the core values, and how do our decisions align with our core values? And then all of the behaviors that surround that, what is acceptable within the culture of the business. So a strong, cohesive culture, for want of a better term.
Mm-hmm. And why does that matter? And again, it all sounds good, sounds very practical and logical, but why is this worth, over decades investing many millions of dollars or whatever your currency is to make sure that you have a strong culture and those behaviors are there? Why does it matter? Like why, some people, why?
Because we have limited effort, okay? And we have limited time. And so if you work with a team around you that have similar beliefs, there is less time devoted to resolving conflicts or trying to get people to agree on things that are essentially, they should be the same. There's a case to be made that the best teams are diverse teams. In other words, you don't want people to have all the same core values, which I completely disagree with, right? But there are people who espouse that. And those teams, the data bears out that core values are important, because the belief sets of the people within the business means that the decision making is more effective, the execution is more effective. What do you think? Why is it important?
Yeah, I mean, I think diverse perspectives, diverse experiences are excellent.
Agree.
But yeah, diverse culture of diverse values are not. Well, I think it's kind of like driving on. And I love what you said, Brad. I love that about we have what you said. We had limited energy,
limited time. I don't know. Someone
limited
can rewind
effort.
it. Limited effort. That's right.
That's what you said. That was brilliant. So I'll come back to that. But it's almost like driving on a highway, and if you're driving between two major cities, I mean, if you were going to go and drive from Perth to Sydney, I know that would be a crazy drive. Or if I was going to drive from, Vancouver to Los Angeles, well, we try and have systems just to make it easier. Like they put first of all, they make a road, and then they put lines on the road. And on the big roads, they separate it so the cars are much less likely to crash into each other. And they have speed limits. So all of these things just make it much less friction when you're driving somewhere, because people have a common understanding of what's acceptable and what's not. But you need guidelines. You need actual roads and lines and stoplights and speed signs, the odd traffic camera to police it, if unfortunately. So that's what values and these behaviors are about. It's setting some guardrails and common understanding of acceptable behavior in the company. And just like we know with roads, they're made for cars. You don't ride bicycles down in one of the lanes on a freeway, or boats, or airplanes, right? Or scooters. That is the car lane. And certain types of people are a natural fit. You got way less friction in the system, period. Yeah. And so if you go back to that limited effort, it's about how much of that limited effort can go to productive, value, creative work versus all that other BS that drains people. So yeah, you know what, Brad, that limited effort, and it's basically, it's the percent to, I'm making a note here, to productive work. That is why you have it. And then there's the belonging and feeling good and like you're united with other people, which also is powerful.
So you look at a dysfunctional,
it's bloody chaos. Go ahead. Otherwise, it's chaos.
Yeah, it's chaos. You look at a dysfunctional team where it is chaos, and so much of their time interacting or prioritizing or executing is spent managing that dysfunction. And that dysfunction comes about because they have different belief sets. One person might think, it's okay to win a deal at any cost. We can trample the customer, or we can trample our competitor, or we can trample our staff. And another person might think, no, we have to respect our competitors, and we have to respect our our other staff. So, that conflict that's just been introduced there, it needs to be managed. And so,
Yep.
that's why it's kind of number two, having a strong culture and behaviors. Any team in any situation, if they have a strong culture and behaviors, will be able to adapt and evolve and get through. Like, that's kind of the foundational prerequisite once we've
Yep.
got the vision established.
Yeah. And it allows them to put more of their energy to value-added work and to get less drained, because you end up having more energy. When you're in an environment that doesn't have that, it's just way harder.
Yeah.
So let's go to number 3 of what we suspect might be 8 in the end.
Oh, you mean the people magnet machine?
The people magnet machine. Yes, please tell me, what is a people magnet machine? It sounds amazing, and I'd like to have one.
Okay, so we've got the long-term vision, okay, and we've got a strong culture. But next, what do we need? We need a method, a system, some way to attract the best people, okay, and then to, let's say, the A players, the best possible people, the top 10% of available people at the pay rate that you offer, and then to draw them up the org chart. Much the same way, think about the way that a tree draws in water through its roots, and then it lifts the water up its trunk. Well, it's the same kind of thing. Think about that magnetized machine that's drawing people in from outside, the best possible people, and then if they are capable of going another level or two or continuing to grow, it's getting those people up into the organization. So we've got a system or a process around that, where not only are we attracting, not only are the people growing, but they're becoming our future leaders as well.
We're really like slaying it on the metaphors today. Hey, we got roads, we got trees. I wonder what else we're going to call it. But yes, I love that. Draw them up the org chart. I got this vision of the tree pulling all these nutrients, water and nutrients out of the soil, bring it into the tree, which allows the tree to continue to grow and thrive. And that's exactly what it is. And we want to be like one of these, redwoods they have in California that have been there for hundreds of years. They're enduring great themselves.
I'll tell you about Domino's Pizza, right? This is an amazing stat. Domino's Pizza in the US, 95% of franchise owners used to be delivery drivers or pizza makers. 95%. The average franchise owner owns over 7 franchises, and the average franchise, okay, makes more than $1.5 million EBITDA, I think.
So whoa.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. When I'm saying like draw in the best talent and get them in at the ground level.
One franchise means one location, or is that the collection of 7?
One franchise means one location. Okay. So I'll say those stats again. 95% of Domino's Pizza franchise owners in the US, 95% used to be either delivery drivers, or they used to be pizza makers or working in the store at a frontline level. Now, of all of the franchise owners, the average franchise owner owns 7+ franchises. Locations. Yeah. And the average location makes over $1.5 million EBITDA.
You had me up until the last stat. I don't know that one. I'm not saying it's not right. That one I find, we will verify that. That's a massive business. And if that was the case, I think there's a lot more people I know would be in the pizza business. But that could be true. And you're an accurate guy. So I love about
I was wrong on the last one. It's 1 million, not 1.5. And
a Domino's Pizza location makes $1 million of EBITDA.
Yep. On the other screen, I have the deck from their annual report. Believe it or not, right? Yeah.
Okay, well, you got my attention. I would like to dig in. I actually know someone who owns a big chunk of Domino's.
There you go. That's the thing. For those of you on YouTube, you can see it hopefully now. Yeah.
I'm just gonna make this bigger. That is amazing. I'm not that passionate about pizza, but it really just got my interest.
You are a little bit more
I do
passionate
like
now, aren't you?
I am. Well, it disappeared. I was just looking at it.
Yeah, that's because I turned it off because there are people on the podcast who are going, "What are you guys talking about? I can't see that."
I know exactly. So the main point is, so amazing profitability. I'd love to read more about that, but is that they get the people who are their delivery drivers and internal people, and they end up converting to franchisees, which brings in more delivery drivers and people. That is one heck of a flywheel. One heck of a flywheel. That is awesome. Great.
Yeah. So that when I'm saying like we're drawing in the right people, we're identifying the right people within our culture, we're it's like a magnet that draws them up. And yeah, what do you want in that business? You want more franchise locations. Like
and if we're not in a business like Domino's where we can offer our people a franchise to make $1 million a year, let's talk about how this applies to other businesses. No matter what your business, we need the people. People are the growth engine of a company. We need people to continue. So we need that people magnet machine. Bring them in and kind of continue to develop great leaders. Otherwise, no matter what the opportunities we have, the business will run out of steam if it doesn't have enough people to do the good work or maximize on those opportunities. It'll run out fast. So that is absolutely critical.
It needs to be adapted to suit whatever your model is. Some it is less so, but you think about it as a machine that just brings in the best people, and it just makes them, like, go back to Liz Wiseman. It's a multiplier effect. It makes them the best possible version of themselves in your organization.
Yep. And in a way where they want to stay. And that's why there's also the long-term, they want to stay and continue to do great work with you, which relates back to the other piece about a culture that they thrive in and a long-term vision that they resonate with. Awesome. Yeah. Well, let's drop into number 4. So, anyone and most people's people magnet machines a bit on the weak side, where they generally are always playing catch up and trying to hunt for the person almost from a scarcity point of view, almost backfilling and late, versus getting a machine that can give them the right people they need almost ahead of time without pre-building in the extra cost of those people. All right, let's go to number 4. So that's where it gets. The next step is, you got some great people, is a strategy that delivers a sustained competitive advantage, i.e., you're doing something valuable in the market that your customers are willing to pay you well for, such that you can make a healthy profit. And that might be great today, but over decades, the markets change, customers' needs change, the competitive environment changes, technology changes, and they've been able to have that sustained competitive advantage. Without what we would call some competitive advantage, it's hard to be great, because you'll be a commodity. And if you're a commodity at commodity pricing with no real differentiation, it's just a hard way to make money, because you're in a price war on almost everything that you do. And so finding that unique position that you could sustain. And if we stay on the food example, if you would take a company like a McDonald's that's in most places around the world, although they're in fast food, which there's a lot of other players, McDonald's has its own unique position, right? And they can't charge $20 for a hamburger. Like, there is pricing pressure, pricing norms, but they have been able to sustain for a long period of time. Even as people talk about, how fast food's unhealthy, for a couple of decades, McDonald's continues to thrive, and they do evolve. Interestingly, not as much as you would think. but they've been able to endure, and and will they be a great company? I'm not sure, but they're a good company, very good company.
Yeah.
But they've been able to adapt to changing times and keep their keep a unique position in the market.
And how have they done that? They're excellent at execution. No one can doubt that.
Yeah.
They're excellent at pricing. They've really had a strategy, McDonald's, over time, that has just, I suppose, been delivering the right priced food for people in the right locations and staying ahead of competitors in that sense. But really, locations is central to their strategy, I think.
It is. We did a case study on them a while ago, and there was three things that McDonald's focused on from a customer, differentiation. One, it was fast. They are known to have the fastest drive-throughs, and they are a master of drive-through. The drive-through food. I mean, there's a McDonald's near where we live, and you go through there after school, when schools are done, between schools and sports, and you can't get near the place. The
Yeah.
lineups are massive, and I'm sure late night. There's different times of the day that'd be crazy great, but it was speed. The second thing was consistency. The not only will the food taste the same almost anywhere in the world you go, unless you're in the there's the Indian version that would be veg or whatever it happens to be, but generally it's the same. And the bathroom will be equally clean, and that used to be a big value prop for they. And then the last piece was so very consistent, high standards, even though it's not the freshest or the most probably nutritionally dense food as you might find in different places, but it's going to be consistent. And they do have healthy options or healthier options too. And then fun for kids.
Yeah.
Last count, they were the largest toy retailer in the world. So that's their unique thing. Like none of the other places they compete with are focused on the combination of speed and consistency and fun for kids. Lots have the consistency, but they're masters of it. But the fun for kids piece, that's a piece of differentiation. And yes, they have a location strategy and other things as well. But they have a strategy and they keep refining it. Like I swear, if you go back 20 years ago, I would expect that they wouldn't be selling pop or soda, as the Americans call it, like they would. This French fry thing, which they wouldn't be doing like they're selling. Like I thought that health would have dominated and they wouldn't be selling a lot of the same stuff, but yet they do. Because they're not selling health, they're selling speed, consistency, and fun.
In Australia, they're selling health.
Are they?
Yeah.
They're selling a little bit in Canada. I don't go to McDonald's very often, so I don't know. But I don't think they're selling a lot of health here.
Yeah, Australia's I think Australia's a trial market for them. They trial things out here first, and there's been they've still got the staples, the Big Macs and the quarter pounders, but a good portion of the menu is focused on more healthy burgers and stuff like that.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool. So the point of it is that strategy sustains for a long period of time. And it's very hard to do because people come into a company and start tweaking the strategy or forgetting about the strategy. Like strategy dies in companies very quickly, like easily and quickly. Because if you listen to feedback from your customers and your employees too much, you end up easily diluting your strategy. And it's very hard to do.
Michael Porter said that a company can outperform rivals only if it can establish a difference it can preserve. Okay. And so without our ability going back to the enduring great company, unless we can build a difference that we can preserve, we may as well be just having a TV advert that says 20% off because it's only a tactic. So when we're talking here about a strategy that delivers a sustained competitive advantage, what we're really saying is it's got to be a difference that we can preserve that is different from the competition, that will deliver a better a better profit margin over a longer period of time.
Yep. Love it. Difference we can preserve takes a certain kind of person and a team of people with certain thinking to do that. Okay. By the way, it's
Number
just
5.
a number of companies I've gone into where they had one and then they gave it away, or they thought they had something better and messed it up. We had to go resurrect the old one. Okay. Execution system, Brad. We want to talk about this one?
Okay, so an execution system to ensure the most important priorities are identified and completed. So what's the most important thing that you're working on at the moment? Well, I don't know. I've got a lot. You should see my to-do list. I've got like 100 things on there. Okay, so do they align with your 90-day goals? Do they align with the company's 90-day goals, with the company's 1 year, with the company's 3 year, with everything that is occurring?
Yeah.
And the strategy of the company. And so it's about focusing on, we've got limited effort that we can commit. Are we working on the most important things? We've spoken a lot about this stuff on this podcast. It's about the 80-20 rule. There is so much around prioritization that is important.
Yes.
But if you want to build an enduring great company, and you want to think multi-decade, over all of those times, you've got to make sure that people and teams and departments and the company is all working on the most important things at all times, rather than many things in an unorganized fashion. What's your thoughts, Kevin?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just about allocating that limited effort and other scarce resources and making sure that we're aligned around the highest priorities to put them. And people get lost in what they're doing, and people will start marching to the beat of their own drum and get lost from the things that matter most. So that's why there needs to be systems for knowing what our, medium term, short term, or medium term goals are, and short term goals and individual goals for people. So, what I look at it is that how do you empower people to know what great looks like in their role, whether it's daily for a tactical role, or weekly or monthly for other roles, or quarterly for more strategic roles. Empowering to know that how they did, and in the companies you work with, is they present their own report card every quarter when they, and they show how they did. Here are the numbers that say my team and I are doing well, and here's our goals that we had. And not only does it give people focus, which is something to hold on to in the madness, it just makes sure the most important stuff gets addressed, which won't. Otherwise, some critical stuff will slip. So you can call it a goal setting system, an execution system, an accountability system. Doesn't matter what you call it. People need to have goals that have regular check-ins so the business keeps marching ahead and doesn't start sliding sideways.
And the human brain loves creativity, and it doesn't like discipline. And people will revert back to doing the things that they like. If there's some things that they don't want to do, they're just going to revert back to doing the things that they like, unless we've got an execution system which incorporates the setting of the priorities, how they're executed, the meetings in which we talk about them, all of that kind of stuff.
Yep. So it's a no-brainer. Yeah, let's go. Go ahead.
Let's move on to the next one. Number 6, data to ensure the right decisions and know when the wrong ones have been made. Okay, so we've just spoken about an execution system where we're setting priorities, but here we're talking about data. And, it's amazing to work with companies where they don't have any data and everything is made from the gut. And then you step out of one strategic planning session and into another one, and they've got all of the information you could ever want on tap. And here's a prediction. I think that what we're going to see in society broadly is these two types of companies are going to become further and further and further apart.
Yep.
And
like the haves and the have-nots.
It really is. Like this is the, you talk about the rich and the poor divide. There's going to be the data and the absence of data divide. Like, it is just amazing the quality of the decisions and how much that impacts a company when you've got the right data. So we've got to ensure that people are making the right decisions because they've got the right data. And what's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great point, Brad. Because the thing is you can use your gut instinct at a certain size. At a certain size, when you can touch and feel everything in the business, you can make decisions. But as a business scales, you need to rely on data more, but also to endure no matter what the conditions are. And I use the metaphor of a pilot flying a plane. There's two types of pilots: visual rated, that fly based on what their eyes can show them, which would be equivalent to a leader making all their decisions based on feel and touching and feeling. And then the next level of pilot is instrument rated, which means they can fly without being able to see with their eyes, just following the gauges in their cockpit. And imagine, I don't know, what kind of pilot would you like to be with if you were in really, really bad weather all of a sudden?
The one,
Yeah.
the one with the most data and the one with the ability to auto-correct the best.
Correct, using data. Now, obviously, and a lot of experience with that data. And what happens, interestingly, with a lot of plane crashes, many, it's uh, bad weather, which causes them to make bad decisions because it's either not having the data or misinterpreting the data and making judgment calls if you go back and trace the steps on things. So if you look at it, it's being more like an instrument rated pilot. You can fly with your eyes, but you have data no matter what that you can count on to keep you out of trouble in any scenario. And as companies grow, it's needed. The second piece is, learning from our mistakes. I mean, we make a lot of mistakes in business. Learning from our mistakes is critical. Now, you can have an opinion fest after a mistake, or you can slice and dice the data and learn for real. I cannot tell you how many companies we work with to help get them using data more and more, because then you actually make better decisions. And when you look afterwards, when you do a fact-based discovery, you can understand and learn a lot more. Just like when there's a plane crash, they go and do a study and do deep analysis, the air authorities, to go and understand what went wrong so they get smarter. But it's not an opinion fest, it's not a speculation. So data may help you make better decisions up front. Doesn't guarantee, but helps. You still need some judgment and understanding. But after the fact, you learn a lot more because you're doing it based on facts. But that's, by the way, and we've got companies that we've worked with that have been around 20, 30, 40, 50, 80, and one of our clients over 100 years. The ones that have been around a while tend to have some pretty good data.
Well, I tell the story of John D. Rockefeller. I think it was in the 1880s. Okay. When it was hard to get a message to the next town in the US, he was able to get daily outputs from his oil wells in Russia. And then I always say, so why are you having troubles in your company getting something as simple as daily or weekly sales figures? We've got to have the right data so that we're making the right decisions. And then if we think about that on a multi-decade level, right data, and then you multiply that by thousands and thousands of decisions, that's how you can build an enduring great company. So let's move on. As a
side note, I spoke with two wildly successful entrepreneurs, one in the Middle East and one from China. And I asked them both, hey, if you were to start again and build your businesses again, what would your first hire be? Interestingly, they were not together at this time. They weren't together. It was separate conversations. They both said a CFO.
Yeah.
And I said, why? They both said, well, business is a numbers game. And I want someone beside me from day one who's a master of the numbers, because that's what we need to be successful. Fascinating, just separate conversations, and both built very large businesses in not a very long period of time.
The CFO makes such a difference, especially if they are the type of CFO who is looking at all of the information and is about providing the right information. Let's move on to number 7, consistent profit generation and growth. So consistent is an interesting word. Let's let's just go back to a whole definition. A purpose-led company that grows and thrives via a sustained competitive advantage over many decades. If you can't consistently generate profit and growth in profit and growth, you're not going to be able to achieve that. Okay, because all you're going to be, the money that you make in summer, you will lose in winter. You'll come out the next year with none the better off, or no better off. So we've got to ensure that we're able to understand cash, understand what impacts margins, and evolve those margins over time. Now, this works really, really closely with number 4, a strategy that delivers sustained competitive advantage. But we've got to make sure that we're always tracking, improving, having ownership around, and being consistent in profit generation.
And usually that comes by focusing on it. You know, I wrote an article once, and you've probably heard similar sayings, but, you know, revenue is vanity. Profit is sanity, and cash is king. Now, I added in a little something about gross margin as well, because I think gross margin is one of my favorite numbers in business. But focusing on profit. Interestingly, in the companies that I work with that focus on profit growth more than revenue growth, generally have it, because that's where their energy and their attention goes. So it takes a lot of focus to be able to continue to do it, because gravity wants to erode the profit, right? Both as a percentage and even some as a value. So continually focusing on it and paying attention is good. And secondly, there's a piece of it of cost discipline or spending discipline that goes with it, because it's very easy to justify spending more on lots of different things as you grow. So maintaining the cost discipline, staying focused on profit, and then using that as a guide to make your decisions. And, you know, and some of the most profitable companies I work with, they look at most decisions through the lens of profit. What's going to be the impact to our net, right? On anything. And it's just really giving it the attention and energy it deserves. And that usually makes it much more likely to be consistently there too.
Yeah, it's a beautiful counterbalance to the strategy, because this is a good strategy should deliver you a sustainable, better profit. But over here, we're really saying that the consistent profit generation, by virtue of focusing on it, by virtue of the disciplines around that. So we're growing it on the one hand through our strategy, and here we're focusing on maintaining it and doing that through an execution process.
Yeah, and I would say that a good strategy, Brad, you could also argue that a strategy may not deliver profit, it would deliver gross profit growth.
Yep.
It may, you know, because there's a whole bunch of other levers underneath that.
I agree.
The strategy would be closer to gross profit growth, I think, for sure. Profit is controlled by so many other things. And because you can have beautiful strategy, amazing growth profit, but blow it all on your overheads.
Well, if you've got an amazing strategy, let's say like Apple, and then you spend all of the money that comes in before it hits the bottom line, well, that only reinforces your point. It's the management of profit that we're talking about here. So you've got to get that gross profit margin coming in at a good level by way of the strategy. And here you've got to manage that profit.
Yes, and we need that profit to continue to reinvest in the business. It was really interesting. A company that we're having an exercise, we're doing a bottom up, what we want, our financial model to look like in, 3, 5, 10 years. And one of the things we're looking at is how much do we need to reinvest into, capital every year? How much do we want to be able to give employees as bonuses? How much do we need to be able to give out to shareholders? And going through, like, you need a notable amount of profit to be healthy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, as they say, is that you don't have enough for this. So, all your stakeholders and aren't able to have a win on an ongoing basis. You need consistent profits to do that. So, which, takes us in, and we know this, but the consistent profit machine is the challenge. Now, by the way, if you want to sell your business consistent profit generation is a driver to value as well from the buyer side. But we're not talking about selling just now. But profit ties into our next one, which is 8. I had a feeling we were going to land on 8, Brad. But it's the balance sheet to endure the biggest storms and stay focused on really what matters. And the profit in number 7 drives that. You get the right profit. If you do it right, some of it will, go and stick to your balance sheet in terms of, cash or short-term investments. But that balance sheet's big. So if we go and look over this period that we're in as we're recording this period called COVID in 2020, which 2020 will soon be over, but not forgotten, is many of the clients that we work with had excellent balance sheets, which allowed them to be smart and make the moves that they needed to and focus on opportunities rather than, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to, pay our bills? But if you came into a period like this with a really weak balance sheet, whether that means not a lot of cash or overloaded with debt, you're kind of rolling the dice. Now, some people would say you should leverage your balance sheet. There's all kinds of different philosophies. No matter what, the measure is, you need to be able to handle a big storm like we experienced in 2020 and to be able to have enough on your balance sheet that you can have a transition period where you don't have to throw your values out the window and, do all kinds of weird things to survive. It's critical because if you don't have that cushion, when weird stuff happens, forget strategy, forget data, you just go pure survival. And, that may or may not be a great way to be sustainably great.
Well, you could be great at all of the other 7. Okay, you could have a great vision. You could have a great culture and behaviors. You could have the people magnet machine. You could have a strategy that delivers an advantage, an execution system, and you could have the right data, and you could be consistently generating profit, right? But if you've got a weak balance sheet and the storm comes in, you're buggered. Like you can't survive. So if you want to build an enduring, great company, you have to have depth and strength in the balance sheet. I think about it like a castle. You've got to have those walls as high and as wide as possible with a moat to protect any intruders trying to attack that, and have it as defensible as it could be. Because profitable companies, going back to your point on COVID, and even before that, every 10 years, there's going to be some kind of event, give or take. Profitable companies go bankrupt every day because they run out of cash every day, all over the world. So the profit and loss is important, but the depth and the strength of the balance sheet, if you actually do really want an enduring great company, you've got to be building that out.
It is. I have a company I worked with in the US. They were doing 100 million a year of sales, 20% profit they were making, and they almost ran out of money. And the CEO was panicked about running out of money, and he was going to either have to sell part of the company or do something to raise cash. Turns out he had never learned about cash flow in school, and and his school was a school of hard knocks, and hadn't learned about cash flow versus profit. And as a result, he pretty well buried his own. I mean, we met. I mean, the guy flew. He flew in on his private plane, like his jet, to come meet me to work the stuff out. His pilot was waiting. He put us up at the best hotel in the city that we were at, in suites. Like, this guy had, he was making about $20 million a year. He just didn't have any of it because the money was all buried in his business. But the point of it is, he didn't understand it. And he got into a storm, and he didn't have the right instruments, right? He didn't have the right instruments to be able to handle the situation. It was real simple to me. But it just came down to, it wasn't about the balance sheet. It was about his cash flow and his impact on his balance sheet that almost screwed him. And that's just not knowing, and not having a good CFO, by the way. He had a horrible CFO.
And what's interesting, some difficult conversations come around, number 2 And number 3, okay, have you got the wrong people? Maybe the people in the leadership team aren't right, and then having to get rid of them after, especially long-term members, right? But some of the really, really difficult conversations actually come around number 8, around this balance sheet, when we're saying to people, look, you need to have a stronger balance sheet. You need to have cash in the business that has no purpose other than to sit there and be strong, because everybody around them wants to sell them stuff. Someone wants them to go and buy a condo. Someone wants them to go and invest in this real estate. Someone wants them to buy, their new IPO or the stocks. Like, everyone wants them to take money out of the business. And here's us saying, look, you've got to build a stronger balance sheet. And this can, in my experience, unless they've got that disciplined mindset for the long term, this can be really, really hard. Some of the hard conversations I've certainly had.
It is. And in all the companies I work with, I lobby very hard to build the balance sheet dramatically. Now, the problem is once they start getting tens of millions of dollars of cash, they get itchy and they want to go and spend it on something, which creates other issues. And exactly. And by the way, is that a scenario that I shared about that CEO? He had a people machine. He had a weak person, and he had weak data. Those two, wrong person and not the right data to make the right decisions around that, and the balance sheet, which threw him into the ditch. So a great list of things that builds enduring great companies, and the idea is to be able to continue to grow and thrive almost no matter what happens around you. So to summarize, number 1, long-term vision. You know where you're going in a way that's compelling for you and your team. Strong culture and behaviors. There's a lot. You reduce the friction in the system and allow more of people's effort to go towards productive, value-added things than distractions and friction. People magnet machine. I love that phrase.
I know.
Where was it? You said the Brad is that you draw people up the org chart just like a tree does the nutrients in water as it grows. That's a beautiful, beautiful metaphor. That's my favorite metaphor today. Strategy delivers sustained competitive advantage, a difference we can preserve so we can continue to service customers in a way where we generate excellent margins, and which ideally results in profits, and lets our customers stay and be loyal and want to bring more customers and add to us what we're doing. Execution systems, so the most important stuff gets done, and we allocate those limited effort of scarce resources. Data to make the right decisions and learn from the wrong ones. Consistent profit, and then a balance sheet so that we got a big cushion to land the plane on if we get into a bad storm.
And so that's the 8 elements that we've certainly, I guess, defined to say this is how you need to build a enduring great company. And again, that's defined in terms of closing on, that's defined as a purpose-led company that grows and thrives via a sustained competitive advantage over many decades. So they're the 8 things. That's our definition. Well, it's been a pretty good chat today, Kevin, I think. I've certainly enjoyed it. Digging into something a bit different than normal, but yeah, it's good to kind of put that signpost in there. So,
and it only took us 31 episodes to define what our podcast is about. It's awesome.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, everyone. This has been the Growth Whisperers podcast. I'm Brad, and joined as always by Kevin. You can find me at evolutionpartners.com.au, and you can find Kevin at lawrenceandco.com. Thanks for listening. We'd love to chat to you again next week. Enjoy your week.